11 dead in Pittsburgh at the hands of a gunman filled with hate. A mail bomber behind bars in Florida after dispatching deadly explosives to critics of the president. Is America's toxic political tone triggering this violence? Heading closer to our southern border, a massive caravan of immigrants. Will deploying additional troops make a bad situation worse? Here in Texas, early voters head to the polls in numbers greater than the presidential election. Will it be Democrats or Republicans reaping the benefit? And in the Bayou City, the battle over pay parity for firefighters turns especially bitter. Will disrespect of a site where 5 heroes lost their lives make a difference in the coming vote? I'm Greg Grugan, and welcome to What's Your Point, where our panelists call it like they see it. Let's greet them. Starting us off, Republican strategist Jessica Colon. Next up, progressive commentator and attorney Nyanza Moore. In the 3 spot, Vlad Davidjic, communication chief for the Harris County Republican Party. Batting cleanup, longtime super neighborhood leader Tamara Bell. Next up, businessman, columnist, and former Kemah mayor Bill King. And closing us out on the hot corner, Chicano activist and educator Tony Diaz. Let's do this. A disgusting and deadly display of hate in Pittsburgh. 11 people are dead and 6 others hurt in what's being described as the worst synagogue shooting in U.S. history. The suspected gunman, Robert Bowers, was armed with an assault rifle and at least 3 handguns when he attacked the Tree of Life synagogue, slaughtering defenseless worshipers in a 20-minute rampage. Bowers was captured and has been charged with hate crimes as federal investigators comb through his anti-Semitic social media posts. According to reports, one of those posts criticized President Trump, suggesting the president was surrounded by too many Jewish people, and Jewish people helped transport members of the migrant caravans, which Bowers calls invaders.
This wicked act of mass murder is pure evil. This was an anti-Semitic act.
289 Americans have died so far this year in shootings involving 4 or more victims. The question before us, has the toxic and extremist tone of American politics triggered additional violence in this era of easy access to firearms? I'm going to start with Nyanza Moore.
I believe it absolutely has. You have to think about Jewish people around the world have all had one thing that they can pinpoint in their history, and that was the Holocaust. And when you think about how the Jewish people were treated in Nazi Germany, you have to think about what started that. It was the speech. It was the hate speech. The years and years and years of Hitler coming up with these phrases and coming up with these euphemisms to say we want to target one group, or we want to say one group is responsible for the death of Jesus. So when you do all of that speech, you had other people in Nazi Germany going out and acting on that. And then all of a sudden you had a full country allowing someone to rise to power with that continued hate speech that caused people to act out. We must protect religious freedom in the United States. Surreal. We also must protect freedom of speech. But at the same time, hate speech is not considered speech. It's just defamatory. It's meant to incite violence and riots. And when you have someone at the leader of this country that starts off with hate speech and then can't even figure out a way how not to have hate speech, and then you want to say, well, it's not the speech that has the bullets. But at the same time, where do the bullets start from? The person pulling the trigger heard something that triggered in their head. I have to go in, like I've had enough. We've had attempted bombings, mass murder. We've had 2 black men shot in parking lots, and then the next day we have Jewish people. When will it end? When will we first say, when will good speech be protected just as much as hate speech? When will we have these internet sites that are taking out these apps? Apple didn't use the app, and I forgot the name of it. It might be called the Gaff or whatever it is, where only Microsoft allowed the app to allow this person to have his hate speech, to say all these anti-Semitic things. When will the United States say that all protected speech is not protected? Because the Supreme Court already said, you cannot shout fire in a crowded theater. But when can you say, let's kill all the Jewish people and it's okay?
Bill King, you monitor speech from both sides, a regular reader, and the tone. I pose that question to you. Is it encouraging violence, what we're hearing today on a regular basis?
Yeah, the tone from both sides is out of control right now. And, you know, by the way, every state in this union recognizes a crime of inciting violence. It is a crime to go out and encourage somebody to commit a violent act in every state in this country. Now, whether or not, you know, the speech from either side goes across that line, I don't know, but they certainly are both getting right up to it. But, you know, the problem is the president, whoever it is, has a particular responsibility because that person is endowed with the biggest, most important bully pulpit in the country. And so it is particularly important and incumbent on the person occupying that office to avoid this kind of thing.
Go ahead, Tamara. Jump in here.
One of the things when I first heard about this and I was reading about it, besides, I mean, God, prayers out to the family, because one of the things that they said was going on was a bris. Now, for you all that don't know, for the Jewish culture, a bris is the equivalent to us when we have a christening of our baby. So you got generations of family members there to watch this sacred moment. So to have this kind of hatred displayed, this is a deliberate, I mean, not only you trying to inflict, I mean, to the core of a group of people. And then I read where the president said they should have had security at the synagogue. I'm like, that's not the statement you make. You don't make that statement. That in many people's mind, it relieves Mr. Bowers of being the bastard that he was that did this.
Okay. Hey, we're going to switch gears. Also this week, high-ranking Democrats and critics of President Trump came under attack when mail packed with explosives was delivered around the country. Investigators say over the course of 6 days, they've recovered 14 suspicious packages containing IEDs. The potentially deadly devices were addressed to Democratic members of Congress, outspoken actor Robert De Niro, and former Presidents Clinton and Obama. DNA and a fingerprint led investigators to 56-year-old Cesar Sayoc, who apparently lived in a van covered with pro-Trump stickers. Sayoc has an extensive criminal history that includes making a bomb threat in 2002, and his social media postings are filled with threatening rants against figures critical of the president. Again, the question, have toxic American politics triggered extremist, violent behavior? Jess, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we just heard Hillary Clinton the other day saying that we can't have civility until the Democrats win, and then we can be civil again. Maxine Waters is telling people to...
He was a Republican that did that.
Maxine Waters, so...
He was a Republican that sent bombs to the president.
Maxine Waters is telling people to go up into the face of Republicans at restaurants and get in their face. Cory Booker is out there saying, get up in their face. If you don't think that the left has just as much hateful language to incite violence, if you can't look at the mobs and see what is going on, this is something that needs to be handled on both sides. And the bottom line here is that when this fella in Florida, he had a criminal history. We're back at this where we need our law enforcement, and they are doing a great job. And they got this guy so fast, and I commend them for that. But we have to look at these histories and go after these people earlier so that these things don't happen.
Vlad, you go to work every day at an office that could be targeted by people who are anti-Republican or anti-GOP. What's your read on the tone, and is it contributing?
I think the tone is contributing, and to agree with what Jessica just said, when you have a former presidential candidate saying that civility can return when they're in power, that's a problem. When you have a former attorney general who says when they go low, we kick them, that's a problem. Obviously, both sides have an issue maintaining decorum, and we need to find ways to bring the country together as much as we possibly can. But again, this particular individual was not only mentally disturbed, but he had a criminal history. It's clear that he should have been targeted much sooner, and this could have been prevented.
I want to bring Tony in here. I mean, you teach kids, and, you know, has civility broken down to the point that it escalates into violence and people who feel they're empowered to take up weapons?
Well, I teach college students. This is like fourth graders arguing, and it's really tempting to dive into it, where you really can't compare people yelling at someone in a restaurant with bombs.
Exactly. Thank you.
And by the same token, it's hard to resist diving directly into arguing with the president when he's blaming the media for reporting this. But we need an adult in the room, and the ultimate father figure would be the president. Unfortunately, he's been saying things that are violent, and it seems that he's trying to stoke his base to get geared up and to vote and to get mad. That's why he's talking about this invasion of this caravan. This bomber called, the lawyer for the bomber in the past said that he saw Donald Trump as a father figure. And I'd like to unpack the whole idea that under Trump's administration, from day one, when he started talking about different races and ethnicities, since his tenure, we've had a racial killing in Charlottesville, we've had a political bombing, and yesterday we've had a religious murder. This is as bad as it's gotten in my estimation. I'm trying really hard not to yell back, but there's some evidence here that stinks. And I tell you what, this is not the American dream. This is the American nightmare. And it's the American carnage Donald Trump talked about at his inauguration.
We're going to keep talking about it. I think that'll only help. It's the only way we can do it. Okay, when we come back, as promised, the president filled the Toyota Center to the rafters. Question now, will the so-called Trump bump help secure Texas for Ted Cruz and fellow Republicans? We're going to talk about it, so stay with us. Welcome back. President Donald J. Trump came to Houston, Texas, and packed the Toyota Center in support of Ted Cruz, earning a very public pledge of loyalty from his one-time bitter rival. In this midterm Senate race, that's still far too close for GOP comfort. Republicans believe the commander-in-chief delivered a significant Trump bump by calling Cruz's re-election critical to his agenda. Vlad, did the president achieve what you hoped he achieved?
Absolutely. I think that's self-evident in the polling and self-evident in the massive turnout in early voting. Obviously, we have a long ways to go, and that's something that we're going to continue working on a daily basis. But if you look at every single one of the polling places across Harris County where Republicans are known to turnout is very high. Republicans are actively interested in making sure that we get our Republican candidates elected, including all of our Republican judges. And they're actively engaged in getting out their neighbors and friends and family to the polls.
I'm guessing Nyanza believes that the increased turnout is
not
on the other side. Go ahead.
Yeah, so you want to say more people to the polls? Well, those are probably liberals and progressives that are trying to go for a change. Because even white educated women are now going for Beto. That's a new poll. So if they're going to flip the vote in favor of a Democrat, then you have to think about it like this. If you're turning out people to the polls, they're not turning out for Republican. They may be in your neighborhood, but they're not of your neighborhood.
Okay. Who wants to go? Tomorrow, jump in.
Okay, I've been at West Gray every day. West Gray is the biggest box in Harris County, and it is not the biggest box in Texas. It is definitely number one and number two. Anybody, whether you be a Democrat or a Republican, that says, oh, this is all us, they a lie. It's not. I'm there. It is very, very diverse in the people that come in. But let me tell you what is most impressive. Because in order for you to take a poll, you got to have a landline. These young people ain't got no landlines. The massive amount of first-time voters and young people, the millennials, who have shown up to the poll has blown me away. I have been very impressed. They camped out overnight to vote in the beginning.
Awesome.
So I don't think the GOP or Democrats, we say, if you want to vote and you want to be heard, you need to come to the poll.
Rebuttal, Jessica Colon.
Well, actually, new voter turnout is on average with what it usually is as far as new registrations go. And furthermore, I don't think the Democrats banked on Republican enthusiasm being just as high and clearly higher than theirs in this election cycle. Definitely, President Trump's agenda and his policies are winning at the ballot box, and so are Governor Abbott's agenda and his policies winning at the ballot box. And that's what we're seeing here. And it's going to help our Republicans all the way down the ballot, as Vlad was talking about. But the bottom line is we have a long way to go, and Republicans have a lot more votes to turn in.
We'll see November 6th. It wasn't all good for the president. Mr. Trump inexplicably repeated the mistake of deriding Texans for taking out their boats during Hurricane Harvey to rescue fellow Texans.
And I don't know who in this room did it, but these guys with the little boats that think they have this great boat, okay? Where do these people come from? They want to go out and they want to go into the hurricane to show their wife how great they are. And then they get out there and they say, oh my God, I'm dead.
The Gaff has become an issue in the hotly contested District 7 congressional race, with Democrat Lizzie Fletcher calling incumbent John Culberson a coward for not setting Trump straight.
To see the president come here and stand in that space and belittle us with clearly no understanding of what actually happened, it was so disappointing. And equally, if not more disappointing to me, is the fact that none of our representatives that have his ear have bothered to correct him, including John Culberson.
I'm sorry to hear my opponent has so little offer that she's focused on Twitter comments or some sidebar that the president made. I'm focused on results. As the only appropriator from Southeast Texas, I delivered the largest hurricane recovery package in the history of the United States.
Okay, Bill,
So weak.
I saved this for you. The president came and did it not once but twice.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
So I've been boating all my life. As most of you know, I grew up in Kemah, and I had a boat before I had a car. And I will tell you, no one in the history of the state of Texas has ever gone out in a boat to watch a hurricane. It has never, ever happened. Period. End of story.
Thank you.
Okay, should Culberson have called out the president? Should other Republicans? I know Ted Cruz corrected him in my interview, which we'll see later. Tony, what's your thoughts on this?
Of course they should have corrected him because he's wrong. And really, I'm proud of Lizzie for standing up to Trump right away. They should have stood up right away. Of course, maybe Cruz caved in under the hot seat. Good job getting him to go there.
Way to go.
But I mean, on top of it, how can we count on these folks? I want to give some facts as well, too. At this Trump rally, Chief Acevedo reported that there were only 18,000 people inside and 3,000 people outside. That means 21,000 people came to see Ted and Donald, versus the 50,000, more than double, who went to see future Texas Senator Beto with the president of Texas, Willie Nelson. And there's another thing I want to say, too. I want the Republicans to stop lying. Ted Cruz does not have 30% vote, does not have 30% support, because guess what? Among those 21,000, there were not 30% Latinos, because if there were, that'd be 7,000, and Trump would have thought it was the caravan and would have had them all deported.
Right. That's right.
Let Vlad respond to that.
Look, here's the thing. Lizzie Fletcher's comments on this are completely ridiculous. It's ridiculous that she has an opinion on
She
what
should stick
Trump
up for
said.
Texas.
What
Yeah.
she can't,
Stick
what
up
she has-
Texas first.
What she
Oh,
doesn't-
let him finish.
Well, she doesn't even know what her opinion is on open borders, government-run
No
health
such
care,
thing.
taxes, or Nancy Pelosi, because those answers change depending on what
Deflect.
audience she's
Okay,
talking to.
Okay, real
what about
quick,
Harvey?
real quick.
Listen,
Tomorrow, real
listen,
quick.
for anybody to condemn the Cajun Navy for
Yeah,
coming over here
exactly.
to help us
Okay.
when all of us
Exactly.
couldn't get to our
Let me tell you
boats, when we couldn't get to our boats to help save citizens that they don't even know, you let them know they got a problem.
That Toyota Center was at maximum capacity. There were 18,000 seats to fill. Every single one was filled. We have 100,000 RSVPs on
But they didn't come.
They
Liberals lied.
Hold on,
I had an RSVP.
Quit interrupting you guys.
And I'm not trying to go against what the police chief said, but there were thousands and thousands of people outside of Toyota Center. You can see it yourself.
about
So the
Hurricane
bottom
Harvey?
line here is let's deal with the facts at hand.
Okay, up
So
next.
don't talk about Harvey.
It's not our point, but your point that really matters. We have posts and tweets from our viewers after the break, so stay with us. Welcome back. We know you have plenty of thoughtful opinions because you share them with us all the time. Deirdre says Americans need to learn how to disagree with integrity. Stop the hate speech words, feed thoughts. Words become actions. Let's get back to the basics of positive human interaction. Now, Mario says the Southern Poverty Law Center says that the incidence of hate crimes have shot up since 45 got into the politics. That's President 45. Words matter. National figures can either bring the best of us out or encourage the worst in society. Bill King, you agree with that?
Deidre's right on the money. I liked her comment for sure. Look, I think it's whenever everybody goes to their corner and immediately says, well, yeah, our side is bad, but the other side is just as bad, that's not helpful to this conversation. We really do need some adults in the room to say, you know, this is not okay for either side to do this. Just stop it. I mean, just stop it.
You know, I don't know when in this country compromise became cowardice. And you know, and both sides are guilty of it. Go ahead and jump in, Tony.
Fair enough, and I also think, too, I like what the viewers were saying in that America was known for the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, Bill of Rights. These are thinking long processes. Unfortunately, right now, we're getting lured in, and I'm guilty of it. It's hard to resist when I disagree with something someone's saying. I'd love to step back and be the professor that I can be, slow it down, because America, we captured the world's imagination with our intelligence, our genius, blue jeans, rock and roll, democracy. That's the America that I think is the beacon of hope across the planet. That's who we should be.
Okay, and we share so much. Go ahead, Jess.
Yeah, I mean, we're in the middle of an election season here where we're debating policies, and there are definitely different views on what the best path forward is, and that's where these policy views come into play, and that's where the conversation should stand. But what we have are all these other influences coming in under attack for what we have in this presidential administration right now, and there's no way that one could just sit back and not want to say, hey, wait a minute, you can't say that. That's not true. That's not what's going on here. These policies are winning, and the Democrats don't like it, and we're seeing that friction.
We just got to all be fair. Got to leave it there. When we return, he's locked in a brutal re-election battle with Beto O'Rourke in a fight that's drawing big dollars and attention from across the country. An extended What's Your Point interview with Senator Ted Cruz after the break. Welcome back. In the marquee race to represent Texas in the United States Senate, incumbent Ted Cruz has a 6-point lead over Democrat Beto O'Rourke in the latest UT Texas Tribune poll. As the campaign entered its final week, I sat down with the senator from Houston for a one-on-one conversation. Senator, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Hey, you have called this a turnout election.
Yeah.
And you and President Trump packed the Toyota Center to the rafters the other day. Does it help you to have had an outpouring like that this close in a turnout election?
Absolutely. You know, we had over 100,000 people sign up to come to that rally. That's really good for the energy, for the excitement, to make sure those folks show up, but also to make sure those folks talk to their friends, talk to their neighbors, and emphasize how important it is to turn out. You know, we know the hard left is going to show up in big numbers. They're filled with rage. They're filled with anger. Many of them are filled with hatred for the president. And what we need common sense conservatives. We need the working men and women in and around Houston, all the folks that work at refineries and petrochemical facilities, and all the folks, the men and women with calluses on their hands, whose jobs are going great, whose wages are going up because of the tax cuts, because of reg reform. We need all those Houstonians to show up and vote, and I'm hopeful that rally will help encourage them to do that.
The president's speech was well received, but I have to point out he must have been misbriefed, because he's talked about Texans staying away from their boats in a crisis, helping other Texans. Can you straighten him out on that? You were out there.
Yeah, no, look, I'm not sure what he meant by that, and someone may have told him something incorrect. You know, you and I both saw it firsthand. The most incredible part of the aftermath of Harvey was the heroism we saw, was the thousands of Texans who went and got in their boats and were rescuing their neighbors, were pulling them out of harm's way. And it was, you know, I've referred to it as rednecks and bass boats, and it's the very best of Texas, and that heroism, as horrific as Harvey is, and there's still many people that are dealing with the aftermath of Harvey, I have never been prouder to be a Texan and to be a Houstonian than seeing how we came together during and after that storm and came through it, and we're coming through stronger.
Senator had 2 debates, and as you have said, a stark difference in what's best for Texas, expressed by 2 different candidates. In the last debate, you told Senator Congressman O'Rourke that to have single-payer health care would require a tripling of the tax rate.
Yeah.
He didn't seem to have a response to the question, how do you pay for that?
Right. Well, he doesn't have a response. He's simply proposing socialized medicine, the federal government taking over health care. And there are 3 big problems with that. The first one is, if you look at every place there's socialized medicine in the world, you see waiting lists, you see rationing, you see the government telling you can't get the health care you need. You know, in the United Kingdom, it takes about 90 days to get through the waiting list to get a hip replacement. In Canada, it can be up to 200 days to get a hip replacement. It's why you see every year about 50,000 people coming from Canada down to the United States, because they're supposedly free health care. They can't get what they need. The second big problem is the cost. What Congressman O'Rourke has proposed, the Urban Institute, which is this left-leaning think tank, projected that it would cost $32 trillion over 10 years. Now, that's a big number, about $2.5 trillion the first year. Right now, all of the income tax we collect is about $1.5 trillion. So what Beto is proposing is tripling your taxes to pay for this. And then third, and this is a point that's really important to understand, Beto's proposal is profoundly dangerous to Medicare. He calls it Medicare for all, but listen, seniors who are on Medicare have spent their whole lives paying into the system, earning the right to be on Medicare. What Beto is proposing is taking 200 million people who aren't on Medicare, many of whom haven't paid into the system, including illegal aliens, and putting them all on Medicare. That would bankrupt Medicare. That's wrong for seniors, and it would turn Medicare into basically welfare. It would turn it into Medicaid. We don't want to see that. We want instead lower premiums, more access, protect pre-existing conditions. Beto's trying to tell some falsehoods about that, but everyone agrees we're going to protect pre-existing conditions, but make health insurance more affordable for everyone.
Senator, we have a caravan of Central Americans heading to our border as we reach this critical midterm. You think it's a coincidence? And what are your thoughts? How should they be greeted? The president has ordered troops to the border. Appropriate?
Absolutely. So I had a long discussion with the president on Monday when he was down in Houston about exactly this. And what I told the president was under no circumstances should that so-called caravan be allowed to cross the Rio Grande. You've got over 10,000 people marching north, declaring their intention to violate U.S. law and enter here illegally. We can't let that happen. I think the president was exactly right to call up troops. He's ordered 800 soldiers to be stationed on the border to stop the caravan from crossing. That is his responsibility as commander-in-chief. And, you know, I thought it was revealing for most of this week. Beto O'Rourke, I think, was too scared to comment on the caravan. His campaign said, oh, we have nothing to say about that. Today, when the president ordered up the troops, Beto came out and said he thought that was unnecessary. There's no need to guard the border. Well, when you have 10,000 people pledging to violate the law, yes, there is. We need to secure the border. There's a right way to come. If you want to come to America, come here legally. Follow the rules, wait in line, the way my father did. My father in 1957 came from Cuba as a legal immigrant coming to Texas and seeking freedom. That's the right way to do it, not marching and declaring your intention to violate the law. That's the wrong way to do it.
Senator, the president said he and Chairman Brady are already talking about the potential of a 10% tax break in addition to the tax cuts that you helped engineer. Do we have the money to give the middle class a 10% break?
Look, I believe we can and should cut taxes further. That cutting taxes, what it does is it creates economic growth and it creates jobs. You know, back last year when we were debating the tax cut, the Democrats were screaming that it was going to cost all this money. Here are the simple facts. We cut taxes, and this year right now we are collecting more in tax revenue than we were a year ago after the tax cut. Now, that shouldn't surprise any student of history. If you go back to the 1960s, John F. Kennedy campaigned on tax cuts. He promised to cut individual tax rates and corporate tax rates. And he said, a rising tide lifts all ships, that if you cut taxes, it'll generate economic growth and benefit everyone. Well, JFK did that. The economy boomed, and you know what happened after JFK's tax cuts? Federal tax revenue increased. By the way, JFK would be chased out of the Democratic Party today. They wouldn't allow him in anymore. He'd be a Republican, and we would welcome him with open arms. Same thing happened with Reagan. Reagan cut taxes. Federal tax revenues went up because the economy grew so fast. We're seeing that with the Trump tax cuts as well. And my number one priority is jobs, jobs, jobs. More jobs, higher wages, more opportunity. That's what Texans want.
Senator Cruz, thanks for taking the time to talk to us.
Always a pleasure, Greg. Thank you.
Coming up, early voters showing up in droves to cast ballots in the Texas midterm. Is it a blue wave or a resurgence of Lone Star Red? We shall rock the vote after the break. Welcome back. Here in Texas, early voter participation is on track to crush turnout in the last midterm election. What remains a mystery is who is benefiting. Are voters validating President Trump by re-electing Ted Cruz? Or are they responding to the youthful charisma of Democrat Beto O'Rourke and his vision of a much more progressive Lone Star state? Since we just had Ted Cruz for 7.5 minutes, I'm going to go to Tony.
Man. So I get to respond to some of his lies. So he's wrong. Beto has been talking about the caravan, how it's a bunch of poor families, poor kids. On top of it, Ted Cruz has got a lot of nerve. He was born in Canada. His family and other Cubans have benefited from the dry-foot law, which basically meant they could become permanent residents. That went away. He didn't stick up for Cubanos when Obama took away the dry-foot rule. So he didn't stick up for his mom. He didn't stick up for his dad. He didn't stick up for his wife, and he didn't stick up for Cubanos or Hispanics. Vote him out.
Okay, back to turnout.
Yeah. Well, it's so difficult to listen to Tony just bash Ted Cruz all the time when he has been delivering great policies for this state and is an honest broker in compromise and negotiations. We need to reelect Ted Cruz and vote straight Republican. Turnout, Republican enthusiasm is very high. We are seeing that in the polls. Republicans are turning out more than deep Democrat primary voters. So Republicans need to stay at it. We need to keep our enthusiasm high. The policies of this administration, the policies of Abbott's administration are winning for Texas, and Republicans are turning out to vote.
Now let me tell you this. Let me tell you, I'm at the polls, as I said, I'm there every day. Nobody can sit up there and say that they're turning out more than Democrats. I am there. It is so even keel. It's amazing. But what has impressed me, I didn't see any Republican youths camping out at the polls on the first day of election. I saw youthful Democrats from Beto out there camping out overnight, sleeping to vote for the first time to make sure they count.
Final 20 seconds to Vlad. What are you hearing from Campaign Central?
What we're hearing is that Republican enthusiasm is extremely high and very strong. We're seeing that in phone calls coming into the office, people who want to volunteer, people who want to go to polling places, people who want to campaign for their candidates. We're seeing enthusiasm across the board, across Harris County.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there. When we return, they just keep coming. A massive caravan of Central Americans looking to cross the U.S. border. Plus, a dishonorable development in the contentious campaign for firefighter pay parity. Stick around, there's more of What's Your Point just ahead. Welcome back. Images of that massive immigrant caravan heading to our southern border have been fully weaponized by political campaigns across the country, especially here in Texas. President Trump has ordered 1,000 additional troops deployed. Senator Ted Cruz joked with an East Texas crowd that his opponent, Beto O'Rourke, would likely meet them with, quote, welcome baskets and foot massage. How should we contend with so many people coming here without permission? Nayans, I'm starting with you.
So I'm not really sure if the caravans that they're talking about, is this the same one that was going into Honduras or the same one that was trying to go into Mexico? Because that's 3,000 miles south of the United States. So there's no danger, there's no imminent harm. We have an election cycle right now, and if you want to incite by saying caravans, because caravans is what caused somebody to go kill Jewish people yesterday, saying that there was a caravan of immigrants. So we're talking about caravans again, and we're scaring the right-wingers out there. So when you look about that, there's not an imminent threat of immigrants rushing into the country because they have 3,000 more miles to go before they reach here. But if the president wants to send all the money and all the troops and all the soldiers down there, and if you want to say that Beto wants to give people's foot massages, maybe they need a foot massage if they came through the Underground Railroad trying to get to the United States.
Okay, Jessica. I mean, we've seen the images. They're on CNN. They're on Fox. I mean, they're on both sides. Your thoughts?
And you just mentioned the media that labeled this a caravan first and foremost. So
Fox and MSNBC.
I mean, this is
CNN did too.
Right. So let's just note that. But we have to be aware of thousands of people coming to the border, and there has to be order at the border when they make it here. That is their objective, to get to our border, and we have no reason to believe that they're going to be orderly when they try to approach the border. This is a politically motivated mission, and we have seen that proven out as they have been traveling through these other countries. And other countries are starting to stand up and receive them or not receive them. This is unprecedented, and we can't just take for granted that we've already seen that there are criminals embedded in this group of people called a caravan moving toward our border. So we have to be prepared to receive thousands of people at this influx and process them in an orderly, lawful manner.
Tony, how do we handle this? How do we handle this? Should we just say, come on in?
I tell you what, Lion Ted is saying that they're doing this illegal. They are seeking asylum. Nan's got a great point. They're thousands of miles away. There's 3 borders in the middle. On top of it, you've got all these Republicans lying and forgetting that they destabilized Honduras. Honduras, actually, they're getting screwed over twice. They lost the TPS, temporary protected status, that they got for helping overturn a government that was elected by the people that was leftist. America and the School of the Americas helped to overhaul that government. We destabilized them. Go down the list, we did that too. It is disgusting for Republicans to forget they did that, and it's more disgusting for Donald Trump to scare people into killing other people. The killer, the MAGA bomber, he cited the invasion and he killed other people. Stop believing these stereotypes, and guess what? If Ted Cruz wins, it's only going to get worse. I'm proud of Beto for not diving in. I wish I was that big, but I'm not, because guess what? Stop profiling Latinos, Trump, Ted Cruz. Stop it.
That's right.
Vlad, is this a winning issue for Republicans to stand strong and deploy troops?
Look, I think the president has a responsibility to ensure that the borders of the United States remain secure. And it's clear that after 8 years, 8 failed policies of Barack Obama, the southern countries are not more prosperous like he said that they would be. Obama promised repeatedly that our southern border was secure, and in 2014 we saw a huge influx of people crossing the border, including lots of children. We're seeing it again. This is a failure of American policy going back the last decade to help those countries in Central America develop their economies, but President Trump and Republicans in Congress are doing what they need to do to secure our border.
Okay, we're going to move on. Here at home, an ugly turn in the contentious battle over Prop B, the firefighters' ballot initiative for equal pay with police. As Fox 26 was the first to report, someone placed an anti-pay parody sign on the fence at the scene of the horrific Southwest End Inferno, where 5 crosses stand in clear sight, representing the 5 firefighters who lost their lives there. The anti-Prop B campaign called the sign placement inadvertent, but the widow of Captain Iron Bill Dowling believes the gesture was intentional.
I mean, there's no doubt it was on purpose. It was meant to hurt, and it did. It hurt, and it hurt the wrong people. It hurt the families. We're innocent in this.
I don't know who put it there. I'm just saying whoever put it there, certainly it's important to be respectful, and not just of places, but family members as well.
Firefighters are counting on years of goodwill in the community. Does this incident help them come Election Day? I'm going to go with Bill first. You follow city politics very closely.
I find it hard to believe that anybody did this intentionally. I can't imagine anybody being that insensitive and that despicable to do that. I think the problem between the two campaigns is there's a big grassroots support for the firefighters. So they have their people out walking, families are walking. It's very much of a grassroots organization. There's not that kind of grassroots support against it. And so basically you have the business interest and City Hall putting money into campaigns and hiring people to go out and put up signs who probably are not thinking very clearly about where the signs are to be placed. But, you know, what bothers me about this is again, the tone of this has gotten so out of control. I've had thousands of people work for me over the years. You cannot lead an organization where you're at war with your own employees. That is a recipe for disaster. And what's the end game here? After this election's over, however it comes out, do we really think all of a sudden everybody's going to get together and start singing Kumbaya? Look, we rely on the fire department and the police department every day in this city. And right now, I don't see anything coming good out of this, regardless of how it comes out.
Tomorrow, need your input.
Listen, whoever put the sign out there, I don't know who it was, but that was stupid and beyond disrespectful. And I know that a lot of times they just hire people to put signs out. They see vacant space, they put signs on it. But this was totally, totally inappropriate. No one, and I mean that from the beginning, which I started talking about this back in May when they were still trying to get their petition heard, no one has said that they did not deserve a raise. To do something like this adds insult to injury, because we know that most of our first responders know when they leave the house, they're putting their life on the line. So this sign, I believe, needs to be removed, number one, immediately. And it has been. Good, and that's very good, and allow these people to go through this healing process. I don't believe that this sign will help any one way or another, but back to what Bill said, I agree. It is a shame. I'm at the poll, and the firefighters are out there in droves. They're coming out, and I'm proud of them for standing up. I believe in the passion of politics as long as it's in the right direction. I don't believe it when it becomes violent and everything. But the rhetoric that has been said during this, I'm with Bill. How do you get past this? Because now, for most people, this is personal. I mean, it's personal. And personal never works in politics, and it never works in governmental politics, where you're talking about millions of people relying on a group for their protection. Because I'm not about to strap up and get on no fire truck to put out nothing. I ain't even a lie to you. And these are the people who've decided to do this. And I believe that we should always be respectful whether we agree or disagree.
We're going to have to leave it right there. Still ahead, our panel answers the question, what did we miss? So stay with us. It's good stuff. Welcome back. President Trump's tweet of the week. Republicans are doing so well in early voting and at the polls, and now this bomb stuff happens and the momentum greatly slows. News not talking politics, very unfortunate. What is going on, Republicans? Go out and vote. Okay, that's the president's tweet. No question about it, absorbing everything you really need to know is practically impossible. That's why each week we endeavor to fill in a few of the gaps by asking our panel, what did we miss? Jessica Colon.
Texas is the best place to do business in the country, and Texans are feeling it. Republican policies are winning to undecided voters. We're better off now than we were 15 years ago before Republicans took office. Go out and vote today, 1 to 6 p.m. Vote straight Republican.
Nyan, some more.
I would just like to say congratulations to the Houston chapter of the NAACP for celebrating your 100th anniversary, because it's very necessary for the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, because it's not just black people, it's all colored people.
Vlad.
I want to encourage everyone to continue voting in early voting, and especially vote straight ticket and vote all the Republican judges. Tomorrow at 4:30, go to the Harris County Republican Facebook page. We're going to have a live town hall with Congressman John Culberson and Dan Crenshaw talking about the issues that affect Houstonians.
Tomorrow, Bell.
Happy birthday, Grandma. No, get back on me. Happy birthday, Grandma Francis Kemp.
I don't think they missed
I love you. I love you. And to the Kemp family, I love you all so much. God is with you all. Thank you for the grace and mercy for keeping her here for over 80 years.
Bill King.
GLO announced that they've come up with a plan to protect the Texas Gulf Coast from hurricane surge. $30 billion is the entire Texas Gulf Coast. It includes the coastal spine, what's been called the Ike Dike. It's sort of ridiculous. It took us 10 years to get to this point, but at least it's some progress.
I think we need it. Tony.
Republican Texas State Board of Ed member Bradley thinks that the word illegal is essential to Mexican American studies. He forced it into the curriculum. That is racist. That is wrong. There's 4 Republicans up for election. They all voted for this. Vote them out. Stop discriminating against Mexican Americans.
Gonna have to leave it there. That's all the time we have. Thanks to our team. And remember, keep it right here. Fox News Sunday with Chris Wallace is coming up at the top of the hour. And be sure and join us next week for the latest edition. What's Your Point? Have a great week.